Hello and welcome and congratulations on grabbing access to this video course on Webinar Lead Pro. And this is a 9-part video course, and I'm going to teach you how to write sales copy that will convert, that will be focused primarily on getting as many people to sign up for your webinar, whether it is a live webinar or a webinar replay. So this is video number 1, the introduction. And what I want to do before we even jump right in is talk about mindset. One of the biggest mistakes that we all make is oftentimes we want to get as many people through the door onto our webinar as much as possible. But rather than thinking about the customer and their needs, a lot of times we think about what sounds good to us and we just put it up there. And that's the wrong angle and the wrong mindset to have. We really want to think at all things that we do, every single thing that you do, how does that impact your customer? And then we'll talk about a quick videos overview right now. And video number 1, of course, is this particular video. Video number 2 is we're going to talk about things that you need before we talk about sales copy. And then, of course, video number 3, we're going to talk about benefits and knowing the benefits of your webinar or the reason why your webinar can be beneficial to people and help them is very, very important. And once you understand the benefits, then it's going to be so much easier to create your headlines, your sales copy, and everything like that. A lot of times we create headlines beforehand without the benefits, and then we wonder why it doesn't convert. Well, the benefits, the reasons why, what's in it for your customer is going to be the reason why they sign up. So we're going to talk about that in video number 3. Video number 4, we're going to talk about headlines and sub-headlines. So I'm going to give you some real-life examples of different headlines that have worked for us and that will definitely work for you if done correctly. Video number 5, we're going to talk about freebies, things that you can give away for free via the webinar or even before the webinar as an incentive to get people to sign up. Now, there's a right way of doing this and there is a wrong way of doing this, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Next, we have video number 6, building curiosity or getting people interested in what's on the other side of the door after they fill in their name and their email is crucial. So I'm going to talk about things that you can add to your landing page to help increase those conversions. Video number 7, we're going to talk about scarcity. How do you get people to take action right away? And the reason being is because a lot of people are just busy. The reason why a lot of times they don't sign up is because they think, hey, I'll sign up later. And then the later comes and they forget. So it's not that most of the time that they don't necessarily like your content. A lot of times that could be the issue, but a lot of times it's because they just forget. Of course, video number 8, we're going to talk about compliance and legal pages and where you can go to find them to make sure that your landing page and your webinar landing page is safe to be promoted on places like Google AdWords or even Facebook ads. And of course, last but not least, we'll talk about video number 9, the inside of the webinar funnel. So right now, I'm mainly going to be talking about the front page before somebody actually sees your webinar or signs up for it. And then, and last but not least, we'll talk about inside of the webinar funnel. We'll talk about what softwares you can use to automate it. And I'll even give you access to some coupons that we were able to get access to that will help you automate your webinar funnels. Now, before we end this video, I want to talk about what you need to get started. For now, what you really need is a lead capture generator. So in other words, you need to have the ability to create lead capture pages, and you need the ability to, of course, connect that lead capture page to some sort of autoresponder like GetResponse.com or even Aweber.com. Now let's move on to video number 2 and talk about what you need to have before we talk about sales copy. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 2, and we're going to talk about what you need to have in hand before we even talk about sales copy. So before we discuss sales copy, you need to get a list of what you have, such as who are you selling to? What do they get afterwards? Do they get something like a lead magnet, which is basically something you give away for free to gain somebody's email address? Are you giving that away for free? Is that going to be inside of your live webinar or webinar replay? Or is that something that people can download immediately upon filling out their email address? So the reason why I'm asking you to figure this out right now, because you want to put that information on your actual lead capture page. What I found over the years is that transparency helps. You don't have to give everything up front, but just letting people know up front what they get on the other side actually will help them out. You could even, we found that even pictures or even sometimes, you really have to test this out, but sometimes even videos can work in the sense that if you show people what they get afterwards, like you're clicking and downloading something, and that can also help conversions as well. Now, overall, I'm going to talk about it later on. Should you use video or should you not use video? Really comes down to testing it and seeing what works. But we'll talk more about that in a different video. But really right now, what I'm trying to get you into the frame of mind is what are you selling? What are you giving on that live webinar, which makes it irresistible for somebody to want to actually get on to watch that webinar. So essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to build curiosity to get somebody to actually take action, right? Another thing is type of webinar. Is it going to be a webinar replay or is it going to be a live webinar? So obviously if it's a webinar replay, you probably don't want to tell people that it is a live webinar. But you can say, you can watch the webinar now, right? Kind of thing. And you don't really have to mention whether it is a webinar replay or not. We found over the years that, to be honest, regardless of it being live or not, we found that webinar replays and live webinars actually convert very, very well. Live webinars are great because people can get their questions answered live, but at the same time, webinar replays, as long as the content are really, really good, then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that it's a webinar replay. What matters is the content that you're providing and that you are fulfilling a promise that you made on the actual lead capture page. So that's why we're thinking in advance here. What are you providing? Are you selling something? What kind of action do you want them to take? So these kinds of things I want you to jot down. Write down on a piece of paper or even your iPhone or smartphone. Just jot it down right now and feel free to pause this video at any time. The next thing you got to think about before we even talk about sales copy, and if you don't have access to it right now, that's fine, but just keep in mind that you will need to have these in hand before you begin to actually set things up. So as far as landing page options go, how do you deliver your webinar? What we found is to get people to sign up for a webinar. As you know, GoToWebinar is a system and a platform that allows you to record your live webinars. Now, they also provide a means of a page that allows people to sign up onto your live webinar. Now, we've tested this before and we found actually over the years that actually having a better looking lead capture page, such as Leadpages, and using that to kind of gather the email address and then getting people onto the GoToWebinar actually works better than providing the default opt-in page that GoToWebinar provides to you. So that's something that we just found, and you can test it out if you would like. But what we do now is we use Leadpages. And Leadpages provides you with some amazing templates that can also provide you with a lot of scarcity and a lot of curiosity and a lot of stuff that I actually will be talking about later on. But you don't have to use lead pages. You can use other things like OptimizePress or anything like that. In addition to that, you will need to have access to an email autoresponder, which will basically capture your email address, the prospect's email address and the prospect's name as well. So autoresponders, you can use anything. There's a lot of them out there. There's getresponse.com or even aweber.com. That's AWEBER.com. So that's another one. So you're going to need a lead capture page and an autoresponder. So two things. Now, another thing that we found that works really, really well is having access to a automated webinar evergreen system. EverWebinar is a system. It's not really a platform to record webinars, but it allows you to take an existing webinar that you might do. Let's say, for example, on GoToWebinar, you do a live webinar, and then you take that video file, you upload it to, say, YouTube or Vimeo, video hosting, and then you place it within EverWebinar. So what EverWebinar does is it basically kind of replicates or creates a great experience that allows you to make it feel like they're at a live webinar. So that's what EverWebinar is all about. Webinar Geo will also help you automate your webinar as well. And we've actually tested both of these. So we've actually bought both of these. And with the Webinar Geo, we were actually able to work out a 40% off coupon, which we'll be providing later on at the end of the video course. And EverWebinar does cost a good amount of money. It's about $1,000. So just keep that in mind. A lot more expensive, but it's definitely nice to have if you want to create that kind of live experience with a non-live webinar replay. So that's just something that you need to be aware of what's out there. So you definitely need GoToWebinar or Webinar Geo, and you definitely need an autoresponder. So if you do lead pages, autoresponder, and GoToWebinar, that's fine. Or you can do GoToWebinar, EverWebinar, and an autoresponder. So these two, the EverWebinar essentially replaces lead pages. All right. So not going to go into too much depth, but those are things that you definitely need to have before you can actually get up and running. So we're really focusing on the sales copy element and how to get people converted over and signed up on your webinar. So with that said, let's move on to video number 3, and we'll talk about benefits. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 3, and we're going to talk about benefits. And the reason why we want to talk about benefits before we talk about headlines and subheadlines and all the other sales copy is simply because benefits are inside of your headlines, are inside of your bullet points, inside of your sales copy. So that's why this is so crucial. So benefits first, headlines later. And I really want you to focus on things like power words or verbs or action words. If you can include more of these within your bullet points and inside of your headlines and along with your benefits, then you will essentially create a pretty powerful headline and pretty powerful bullet points. Because if you really think about it, and going back to kind of the mindset, what we talked about earlier is we need to focus on what's in it for me on this webinar. So obviously me is going to be your prospect. So what's in it for your prospect on this webinar? What's so special on the live webinar? Or maybe if you can split it up here, what's so special about them actually signing up and attending the live webinar versus if they didn't attend the webinar, what would they actually be missing out on? So that's something you want to jot down. Okay, maybe they need to attend the live webinar because you're going to show something to everybody that you don't want everybody else to see. So you're going to see that angle used a lot with webinars. Another thing is maybe if somebody attends the live webinar, they can ask you questions, because if they're watching a webinar replay, they may not be able to ask you the actual questions live. So a lot of people like that aspect, and I think we all do, especially if we're going to buy a product. We want to make sure that we want to ask as many questions as possible. So that's why live webinars essentially are really, really good. The webinar replays are just as powerful, but live webinars oftentimes are much more powerful simply because it's live and you're able to answer more questions. Let's take a look at the actual benefits. So what are benefits? Benefits are things not just that people get, because those are actually features. So if we take a look at a chair, the feature would be like the chair rocks. So it's, for example, if it's a rocking chair, the chair is rocking, the feet on the rocking maybe is made up of a certain material. But if you think about it, if somebody read that, if they were like, okay, this chair was made of some sort of amazing material, in their minds, they're thinking, well, why does that matter? Like, why should I care about that, right? And if you think about it, if you look at a product and they just list all the features, that is red, that is green, that is stainless steel, none of that matters to you, right? Until you understand how that will impact you, right? So without the benefit, it means nothing to the visitor. Now, if we switch it around and we take a look at it and we say, well, this rocking chair will help you relax. It's made of this type of material that when you rock the chair, you don't even feel like you're even rocking. So what it does is it indirectly helps you relax, which then indirectly helps lessen your stress levels. So if you're selling that to somebody who, is extremely stressed, is looking for solutions, looking for ways to solve that kind of pain, then guess what? You're more likely to appeal to that type of person, right? So I really want you to think about benefits. Don't even think about features. And I'll give you more examples as we go on. But I really want you to think about that. What are the benefits of your webinar? So if they come and attend it, and maybe they get to talk to a guest, or maybe the guest is going to talk about something that will solve their pain. So if you know their pain, it's easier to solve that pain, right? If you don't know them, you don't know what their pain is, you don't know what they go through, your prospect that is, then it's really hard to speak directly to them. Now, I'm going to actually give you some headlines that you can use, and you can fill in the blanks of the headlines and with action words and verbs and power words. The power words are things like, discover, or finally do this or do that, or how to. And verbs add the effect and make it more kind of powerful. So what I recommend that you do is, there are tons of power words out there on the internet. In fact, if we head on over to Google and you just type in power words, you can actually see in Google, there are many places where you can get access to power words. In fact, I like to just go straight to the images section, which will give me access to a bunch of kind of cheat sheets, which will allow me to find power words. So we click on this and we can view the actual image. So we'll zoom in a little bit, but it says top 100 power words. Now, these are resume words, so let's move on to another one. So we can see absolute, amaze, authentic, bargain, quick and easy, direct, easy, excellent. So you see these are kind of words that just stand out to you, right? So use these words within your headlines. Here's some more power words to use as well. So you don't even have to go out there and buy, swipe files or anything like that. There are tons of swipe files that are on Google that you can actually use. So now that you have a better idea of what a benefit is and what power words are, and to use action verbs, let's talk about creating headlines. And I'll actually give you an actual swipe headline that you can use yourself that has worked well for us. Hello and welcome to video number 4. We're going to talk about headlines and sub-headlines. So now that we talked about benefits, what we want to do is we want to front load the headline with benefits. All right, so now that you have the benefits, and hopefully if you had a chance to apply what we talked about in the previous video, you should have some benefits in hand that or reasons why people should sign up for your webinar. All you have to do now is simply take those benefits and apply them to your actual page. Now I'm going to show you how to make them, look nicer and how to kind of effectively utilize them. So within your headlines, what we found is using numbers, case studies, social proof, using power words and verbs in your lead capture page, all in all, can actually help work together to help convert the prospect into a actual attendee. Another thing we found that works is you create a common enemy. Now, it's basically like prospect versus enemy. Now, the enemy can be someone who is withholding secrets, not always necessarily negative. For example, a weight loss or anything to deal with health. For example, as you know, you go to the doctor typically for that. Or if you are in a specific industry and maybe you go to a mentor or a guru, or you think about someone who is bigger than you, or maybe they are the underdog essentially, like the prospect is the underdog and there's this big company or big corporation that is over them. And if you can figure that out and create a common enemy that everybody in that niche can relate to, then that actually will help you in your headline. So for example, discover a weight loss method that your doctor doesn't want you to know. And maybe you have a special guest, or maybe you're a host, or maybe you figured out something like a method, or your guest has found out a method that helps them lose weight, that maybe they were told by their doctor, or maybe the prospect also was told by their doctor, this is never going to work. Maybe you were told this has never worked, but my special guest here is going to show you how. So obviously that's kind of building a little bit curiosity. They're interested in who that guest might be. And they're, of course, going to want to attend the live webinar. So those are just some ideas on different headlines that you could possibly use. This is one headline that we have used that has worked over and over again. And we have actually consistently gotten 30 to 40% or even more conversion rate just by using this particular headline. So if you don't really want to do anything, you can simply grab this headline, fill in the details, and you're good to go, right? So discover how to blank. Now the blank here is an action verb. So you could say, discover how to lose, and then a noun, maybe lose weights in your belly or something, in less than a month, a week, several months, in less than 3 weeks. And then you can put the common enemy here. Doctor doesn't want you to know. And then featured guest, or whoever the featured guest is, you or your guest, you put their name here. They did this. This Bob lost this many pounds in their tummy. Watch now to see how he did it. So you can apply this to something else as well. Discover how to build a shed in less than 2 weeks and save, let's say, $3,000, because it normally costs about $3,000 to $4,000 or $5,000 to build an actual shed. Maybe the big corporations don't really want you to know this information, because once you have this information, you can go out and build your own shed. Featured guests, maybe somebody who is unlike necessarily to be seen as somebody doing it. Maybe my mother or someone was able to set up their shed without any difficulty in less than 3 weeks, saving $3,000. Watch now how she did it. So maybe you're selling a product that actually, expands and creates a shed. I don't know. So that's why knowing your benefits and knowing your product or service really well is crucial. So now all you have to do is simply fill in the blanks and you're good to go. Now, as far as like benefits go and bullets go, as far as the other pieces of your page goes, you can take this and you can create bullet points. So let's say, for example, my mom, set up a shed, or this person lost weight, watch now to see. So your bullets could be kind of variations of the headline. So it could be stuff like, she ate this and lost this amount of pounds or something. Or she did this specific thing and did that and got this kind of result. So your actual bullet points, what we recommend is they should also be results. So obviously your prospect wants to achieve those results, right? So what better way than to put the bullet points and use those as a means to display your results in sentences. And that's a great way to kind of get people to actually sign up, because now they're interested in, all these benefits, these results that are impacting them. They want to attend the live webinar or the webinar replay. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on, what kinds of headlines, subheadlines, and even bullet points that you can actually include on your lead capture page. Now, don't make your lead capture page complex. In fact, it's super simple. Really what it comes down to is it should have a little sentence at the top, and we'll talk about that later, but a little sentence at the top that talks about like, strictly confidential. This page can be taken down at any time. Put your headline, put your subheadline, put some scarcity into it, put some curiosity into it. Don't forget your call to action buttons, and then your bullets. That's it. In fact, the longer your lead capture page is, often the lower your conversion will be. So shorter, simple, straightforward is always the best. All right, so now let's talk about, in video number 5, freebies and lead magnets, things that you can give away for free as an incentive to get people to sign up on your webinar.